is Hayley Hughes, and I just want to thank you so much for having me here today at the UX conference. My apologies for being remote, but I am super excited to advocate for why you should aim for unity and not uniformity when it comes to designing end-to-end experiences. And I want to show you how you can do this with design language systems. Currently, I work on the Polaris design system team, but prior to working at Shopify, I was at Airbnb working on the evolution of their design system, and IBM working on the design language back in 2014. Throughout my talk, I'll be using examples from these three companies. Today, I'm going to tell you why design language systems are such important drivers for brand unity. There are different types of systems, global and local, and I'm going to be talking about what they're made of and the relationships between them. Lastly, I'll be sharing the importance of flexibility and including people in your process. First, I just want to bring up how I got the idea for this talk. I was thinking about the state of design language systems, and it reminded me of Gordon Bruce, someone who stopped by the IBM office one day to talk to us while I worked there. Gordon is an industrial designer. He worked for Elliott Noyes in the 60s and 70s when he was the director of design at IBM. In an interview with Fast Company, Gordon described Elliott's advocacy for a level of excellence rather than a kind of corporate style. He said that Elliott believed in unity, not uniformity. Unity was a family of ideas with a distinctive character that was all tied together by excellence. Uniformity, on the other hand, was more about following a set of rules, a consistent style, like you were a part of the military, where everybody wears the same uniforms and everyone looks exactly the same. There's a lot of uniformity in the way that design language systems are expressed today. All you have to do is Google them to see that many systems and all the different products that they produce lack an opinion and a kind of point of view that give them that distinctive character. This is because we often treat design language systems as a means for a company to operationalize design or be more efficient in the way they engineer. And we sort of forget that there are primary means for creating products that build trust and relationships with our users. Elliott said that we have to design things in such a way that everything goes with everything else, not design things in a way where everything is exactly the same as everything else. And that subtle distinction is often misinterpreted. In an era where fitting in is more comfortable and coveted, perhaps it's time to slow down. We can reclaim the purpose of a design language and stand out by standing for the different qualities that we value. Unity is all about having a concept. You want to have a family of ideas that relate to one another in such a way that when you express them, they represent a kind of character and an ethos. When we strive for excellence in the execution of all of those ideas, we achieve unity in our work. And there's no better example than Paul Rand's work at IBM. When you see the playful version of the logo and packaging, you see the rebus that's made from the red eyebrowed eyeball and pink-eyed bumblebee and the blue 8-bar M. Together, they're an expression that still reads as the inventive spirit of a company. This is also true in the technical diagrams that were created for IBM's industrial brand language. The same boldness is applied here, but in a more functional way. It's about helping you understand the relationships between every decision. In the 90s and 2000s, IBM software started being created by engineers for engineers. there's about one designer for every 60 engineers. It was almost as though that era of unity and expressiveness at IBM had started to kind of vanish into thin air. It got replaced by a pattern library called One UI, which is the perfect name for a system of sameness and radical mediocrity. IBM had painted themselves into a corner with a kind of rigid coding framework that left designers completely out of the process. And when I joined, we had to kind of bring a new life into the software products by focusing on unity across different platforms and different audiences, different environments. Since then, IBM created a new physical and digital set of experiences that, when you stand back and squint, all feel like one family. And that's the goal. So let's get back to the value of design language systems. It's not just about speed, it's about quality. The quality of expressing a distinctive character through a set of ideas, all held together by excellence. Today I work at Shopify. For a long time, we'd been focused on building out a cross-platform system to create a back office experiences so that people can spin up businesses. As entrepreneurs started using it and it got popular, we had to be more intentional about our marketing and how we started showing up at events to bring all these different things together. When you think about how systems drive brand unity, there's so many different touch points across a scale that you can either dial up or dial down, which makes these offerings either more expressive or more functional based on what people are trying to do. A design language has to accommodate for a variety of cases: physical, in-person, digital, self-service, marketing at an airport or at the Super Bowl, selling tacos out of a food truck, you name it. And honestly, that's what intrigued me to join the Polaris design system. I wanted to be there at the time when we were defining how our system could enable designers and developers to balance the experiences that are uniquely fit for our users' purpose while still representing Shopify in that unified way. So now you know why it's so important to drive brand unity. But how do you do it? Well, IBM, Airbnb, and Shopify all created global and local design systems in order to solve for unity, not uniformity. Both the global and local systems are needed to maintain this kind of unified experience at scale. Global systems are point-in-time decisions about the way that we create things that represent our character in the world. They're often stewarded by a centralized team that create these flexible foundations like color and type and layout and motion, and they form a global point of view around the company's brand experience, making a set of broad decisions that can be specifically applied across everything. Local systems are decisions about the way that we create things, enabling people to get value by fulfilling their wants and needs. This is usually stewarded by a team in product or marketing with an offering, and they create a set of contextual components like custom data visualizations or a specific barcode scanner. They start to form a local point of view around the needs of their specific users. Global systems help you achieve brand unity at the highest level, while local systems ensure that a company's character is calibrated to the situation in which it's being communicated. The balance is struck by deeply understanding the specific audience you aim to serve. One of the biggest questions I've seen organizations struggle with is not being able to identify the parts that belong to each kind of system. There's not really any limit to what you can put in these systems, but I've formed a few opinions about what might belong where, and today I'm going to try to provide you with some examples and reasons for each part. Starting with a global system, you can make anything on this list, but I recommend beginning from the brand philosophy and design language as the foundation for the decisions of everything above it. And this is because these are kind of the underlying foundation. The relationship between all of these parts is that each artifact that you produce should come from a collection of the decisions and beliefs below it. The hierarchy generally moves up in complexity of parts as you reach for universal journeys. So, to start from the bottom, your brand philosophy is a set of beliefs about what the organization stands for. It should be highly opinionated and equal parts aspirational. I usually show a video from IBM's philosophy, but I only have a short time with you today. So as you can see from the stills from the video, keep in mind that the words and symbols are setting the tone for the design language. Actionable phrases like building bonds, being a service to society, and delivering professional performance are things that IBM aspires to achieve as a company. Your design language is basically the way that designers and developers create the expression of your brand. It's a set of attributes and criteria that describe how to deliver the philosophy. Almost a decade ago, there was this handbook created at IBM to outline the design language, what IBM looks like, sounds like, thinks like, and performs like when it's being expressed with excellence. And I want to just share some photos of it from my bookshelf at home. So here are a few examples. I don't have time to highlight everything from these pages, but I did want to show you this one. I love this one. IBM thinks with the scientist's rigor, the statesman's ideals, and the industrialist's scope. Sounds a lot like a systems thinker to me. It's also pretty interesting because what you see in terms of principles is few but quality, and instead they focus a lot on going into how you'd evaluate a piece of work based on these principles. Jasenia Perez-Cruz, the author of Expressive Design Systems, sums up the success of a good brand philosophy, good design language, and principles by saying, codify what it means to create a product that feels like your company. What decisions would your company make that other companies wouldn't? Elements and tokens are brand values, like colors and type and spacing and sizing units, that enable a unified brand and look across offerings in design and code. And they're streamlined in a way that you can use and maintain them. And so this is an example from Airbnb. It shows those primary units of expression. They're created with proportional ratios, intentional line heights, and accessibility in mind. These kinds of elements and tokens allow for things like systematic theming, which can help you apply a brand expression to one or many different types of system components. At Shopify, it enables things like light and dark mode, white labeled products, and one-time marketing campaigns or seasonal expressions. System components are the smallest, agnostic, functional pieces of UI created using elements and tokens, things like a toast, a link, a button, or a card. These different UI pieces can be reused across offerings, and they help people avoid recreating the same functionality that becomes really hard to maintain across many teams. At Shopify, you can view different variations of global components, like this progress bar in our style guide. One reason why this would be considered global is because it can be used by any team, and it's also be modifiable by its task, the number of tasks, and its size. System patterns up the hierarchy are documentation for how different components solve problems by responding to user behavior. And so IBM's Carbon design system breaks down these repeatable solutions to common usability problems like search or filtering. It's not enough just to show the UI anatomy. They basically show things like the most frequently used search types, like type ahead, user behaviors, best practices, and interaction design in great detail. System flows are different sequences of interactions which complete a task, and they're made from that set of components and layouts. If you don't find designing a login to be the peak of your innovation skills, IBM provided a set of screens that all feel unified while giving you options to choose a level of expression and information density that makes sense for your use case. This is also something that we do at Shopify. Here's an onboarding flow, which is flexible enough to be a starting place to customize dozens of other types of onboarding experiences. Universal journeys are experiences that people will have with your product whether you design for them or not. They're the connective tissue that all of your products either include or are inspired by. At Airbnb, the core host and guest journeys were designed by contracted illustrators at Pixar. They aim to capture the steps of a journey through expressive storyboards. And since the creation of these, hundreds of user journeys have been created at Airbnb by product teams that use these as the starting place. IBM also created a set of universal experiences. Questions like, how do I get value for my time and effort, are always in the back of users' minds, but IBM put the questions front and center to show all teams how they might help users get started, help people get their jobs done, and get support. Now that you understand the why behind the parts that can make up a global system, let's revisit both types of systems. So remember that these global systems help you achieve brand unity at the highest level. They're more centralized, and again, they're oftentimes a broad set of decisions that people who are working on local systems pull from. They ensure the company has a distinctive character, and local systems calibrate that character to specific situations and scenarios and different kinds of offerings where it's being communicated. So you have to, again, deeply understand who you're serving in order to build a local system from a global system. Local systems are made of similar sounding parts as what we just went through with global, but each have their own nuance. Like global systems, they're also inheriting from the bottom up. And the relationship between these systems is that the local systems inherit and curate from a set of broader decisions and flexible assets from the global system. The local system extends a subset of those global parts into their own offerings, and they customize some of the assets to work for their specific user journeys and scenarios. When local systems are made from scratch, or if people deviate or fork or detach from a global system, they not only lose updates, but also the ability to benefit from the family of ideas and distinctive character of the global system. When they stay in sync, there's even an additional benefit because global systems can then track and view the unique customizations of local systems, and they can find new things to offer and globalize so that local teams can keep focused on their specific user experience instead of maintaining things in multiple places that are actually truly general across your company. Experience principles are foundational statements of truth which guide decisions towards certain kinds of experiences and not others. Our retail team at Shopify designed a set of principles based on unique situations they found when merchants were working in stores. They took global values, like being fast and reliable and simple, and translated those into more memorable, custom, and applicable principles that speak to the brick-and-mortar environment the retailers face every day. Contextual factors are considerations that go into your design based on different kinds of pressures that influence your users every day. So this could be something particular about the audience you serve. Maybe they all have low vision, or they have to wear headphones while using your product. Could be something about their environment, that it's really hot or it's really dark, the level of focus available to them, and the kind of platform they're on. At Shopify, we noticed that our global design system solves for some contextual factors, but our local systems have had to fill in the gap for products that are in physical spaces like the storefronts, with different lighting conditions, where a merchant's attention is divided, and they're constantly reaching for something an arm's length away. It's important when you're documenting these unique factors to look at the user's environment and go in person, take photographs or videos when permitted, and start to see the conditions of your user's world for yourself. And often these factors can also help you generate ecosystem maps and archetypes in order to help your team empathize with the unique context and people that you're designing for. Elements and tokens at the product level are a subset of the global brand values. They should be tested in product to see how they influence the perception of your users. These are, again, the same elements I showed you from Airbnb, but a local system would only be picking certain type sizes, colors, and spacers that they need for their use case. And they document only those elements and tokens for their experience design in their UI kit. Product components are larger pieces of UI functionality that can be arranged into bigger components, modules, and layouts. They could be smaller components as well, but they would be highly customized. IBM's security team created specific custom headers with account lists and long account names that were really only relevant to their use case. And then in their storybook here, which is beautiful, they also showcase these custom UI shells and example screens like this non-entitled default page that prevents users from accessing content without administrator privileges, which is again a very domain-specific type of shell. Product patterns are UI solutions and UX solutions to problems in a given context. And they help make experiences familiar and understandable to a user. And some of those patterns can be made completely from scratch. So this is Watson Discovery Advisor from IBM, where a unique network data viz and a certain UX pattern was made for a doctor exploring interactions between specific genes, drugs, and diseases. Product flows are the sequence of interactions that complete a certain task. They're made from a set of components and patterns and layouts. So this is an example from Shopify that shows how a picker would be able to raise an exception when flagging a damaged product in a warehouse. These flows are important for local systems to document because they can be used to identify missing or redundant steps, and they can start to give other teams a big picture view of the global system's application in product. User journeys are the sum of all different types of interactions across flows that are required in order to fulfill a user need. At Airbnb, custom journeys were created, and in some cases, teams use them to track the health of the experience with scorecards, as you can see below. Other journeys lived in things like spreadsheets, where product marketing, finance, HR would all be measuring things like brand quality, conversion rates, price models, and headcount of the people that are working on specific journeys. At Shopify, they also map journeys in order to forecast things like undesirable outcomes to anticipate what could go wrong before it happens. While some parts of a global system, like elements or tokens, are more fixed and should be used exactly as specified, There need to be parts of a system that are flexible for creative solutions and designed to be configured and customized for team-specific use cases. Here are a few ideas for how to bake that flexibility in. This one is a broad framework at IBM for how we would make decisions, and it came from people who created the first design language for physical photocopiers back in Xerox Copy Park. So far, it's been the broadest and best design thinking that I've found for creating design languages. It enables teams to have a flexible process in how they go about evolving global and local systems. We also at Airbnb created a kind of language for how to make more modular components and explain what aspects of the pieces you could change. This included things like the content or properties, the style, and the placement or organization of elements in a component. In the book Expressive Design Systems, content, structure, and style were identified as the three main ways to modify components in order to express variation. And this is an example from Vox, where two different variations on the product card show different content and structure with the addition of new information while keeping the general style similar. The last thing I'll mention is Adobe and IDEON's Hack the Design System book, and they talk about the differences and risks between system rules when you're either too strict or too loose, and basically how to decide what level your team should be at, either guiding or prescribing certain decisions. In systems, building trust isn't just about setting up a system and then forgetting it. You have to build on it, and you want to bring people along as you multiply and evolve. So here's some ideas for how to include everyone, a little bit at a time. One thing is you could start a partnership program where designers and developers across the company become advocates and start to contribute to your systems. You can create specific rituals or a kind of feedback loop to share local systems knowledge. One designer in our program that we created at Airbnb said that showing up to our partners program was the best thing about our system since it was created. And you can read more about how we built that partnership program and included people on Airbnb's blog. You can also invite teams to come in and co-create systems with you using lo-fi exercises like card sorting or post-it noting or make tools. A lot of people aren't necessarily even creating user interfaces. Your data scientists, legal, finance, HR teams can also contribute feedback through research. You could ask them to write a love letter or a breakup letter to your design system to learn how they're feeling about it and whether it's really working for them or not. If you take anything away today, the most important thing is to remember that unity isn't the goal. That unity is the goal, not uniformity. I'm sorry. If you're making a design language system and the only thing that you're measuring, or the most important thing that you're measuring, is consistency, take a step back and ask yourself if everything that people produce with your system starts to look and feel exactly the same. Have you made an army of apps that represent your brand but don't really work for your user? Or vice versa, have you made things that work for your user but don't have anything to do with your brand and look like they come from 12 different companies? Remember Eliot's wisdom. Everything should go with everything else, but not everything should be the same. Consistency doesn't equal quality. You want to encourage local system teams to creatively express using your global foundations. You want to foster a family of ideas, find the character that makes it stand out based on what you stand for, and then you want to give people the time to turn details into an excellent design. If unity comes from a family of ideas, then let's start drawing inspiration from each other and create design language systems that reflect the best of our relationships. Thank you.